Well, hey guys, it's Viejo here, and we are still in the third week of December here. Boy, Christmas is coming. And I got a rainy day here today on the central coast of California. It's not cold. I got 67 here in the garage. Probably just about that outside. Last time we were talking about seeding dyes because I'm working on this project with some 41 Magnum, okay, loading that we're doing with some of the components that our friend Gene from Reloading from the Hot Pot gave us. And I thought I'd share with you another kind of a little tip about seeding dyes. And this has to do with how do you know how much to adjust the seeding stem. Okay, you set it to where you think is right, and then you measure your overall length and it's wrong, and you know that you got to move this stem a little bit, but you don't know how much, and you're going, yeah, I wish I could afford one of those cool redding dyes, you know, with the micrometer. Yeah. Let me show you something. If you're new to reloading, you may not have seen this before, but if you're an old hat, you've probably figured this out for yourself long since. But let's take a look here. Okay, I've got a selection of seeding dyes here. Here's a newer style RCBS. This is a Lyman. That's an older style RCBS with the thinner stem, okay? And here's a Lee. And let's say you're using one of these fine dyes to seat your bullet to a specific COAL, or cartridge overall length. And so, you know, obviously we'd be on our press doing this, and this is a dummy round, guys, not real ammo. And you would run your cartridge up in there and, you know, having preset your seat stem to about where you thought it should be. And you come in here with your calipers and you measure it and you say, oh goodness, I'm way too long. And so you realize the need to adjust your seating stem down, but you don't know exactly how much, and so you're just going to guess. You're going to go by experience, or maybe you have got a dummy round already up in the die and you knew you were close, but how close, you measured it and you're off by 5 thousandths or something, and so now you need to move it 5 thousandths. Well, what's 5 thousandths on this? Okay, so let's say you went ahead and you adjusted it again, and now you come in and you had not moved it any more than a couple thousandths, so I need to go further. Well, how much further? How much do I turn it? And so again, you guess. And then you come back and you go, holy moly, now I'm way too short. And so, you know, you got to bring out the kinetic hammer, put the cartridge in there and give it a couple whacks and draw that bullet back out and kind of start it all over again and hope you get it right the second time. All right, ever been there? Yeah, I have. So what can you do about that? Well, one thing is, you know, you can go buy a fancy-dancy micrometer seeder like this, or you can learn about the thread pitch on these seating stems. And once you know that, we'll show you here how to more closely approximate the change in your overall length by an eighth, quarter, half, or a full turn of this stem, okay? So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to calibrate this seating stem, or any of the common ones that are like it, okay? And by calibrate, I mean I'm going to show you how to know in advance how much a quarter turn is worth as far as changing your overall length of your cartridge, or a half turn or a full turn or whatever, eighth of a turn. Okay, we're going to establish that, and it's real easy to do. The basic technique is going to require a thread pitch gauge like this one. But don't panic if you don't have one. I'm going to show you a summary table that's got a lot of this already done for you, okay? So what we would do is take our seat stem and turn it out far enough so that we can expose an inch or so of our threads, okay? Enough to put one of these gauges on there, Okay, let me see if I can find the right one quickly and easily. I know what that thread pitch is. Okay, let's close these up. And if you have a Lee seat die, you got to take the stem all the way out because there aren't enough threads on there to measure if you leave it in the die. Okay, but what we would do is we come up, and this particular gauge is for 20 threads per inch. And we can see that it just exactly fits inside those threads. So you got to come up with the gauge that's correct. Okay, that's pretty important. So you get a good fit there. All right. So what this means is that if we were to expose a full inch of this seating stem, that there would be 20 threads. And if I were to rotate this through one full turn, what we would have done is moved one thread down into the die. Okay, each turn moves one thread up or down, depending on which way you turn this, moves one thread past any observation point. In this case, I just referenced the top of that nut. Okay, well, if our thread pitch is 20 threads per inch, that means that one full turn or one thread would be 1/20th of an inch. Does that make sense? Okay. If we move this through one full turn, you see I got a reference mark on there, I would have moved this seating stem down by one thread. Okay. Well, how much is that distance there from one thread to the next? Well, it's 1/20th of an inch. Well, that's not how we measure cartridge overall length. Okay, we're going to measure it in inches and thousandths. Okay, so what we do now that we know that that thread pitch was 20 threads per inch, put this down here where you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to divide 1 by 20 to find out what 1/20th of an inch is worth. In other words, the distance between any two threads, okay, one thread's worth, so to speak. And that comes out 0.05, which is 50 thousandths. So that tells me that, again, one full rotation of that stem would have a value of 50 thousandths of an inch change in my cartridge overall length, okay? Well, that's a lot, right? So if we've got a little reference mark that we put on our seat stem, which I did, I took a center punch and put a little dimple there and then just daubed it with my Sharpie. And you can take a small 3-corner file and file a little angle off onto there and fill that in. You could use a drop of fingernail polish, whatever you want, but it's really handy to have a reference mark. Okay, so if one full turn, okay, represented 50 thousandths, then a half a turn is how much? 25 thousandths, right? What would a quarter turn be? Well, it would be 1/4 of 50, which would be about 12.5, 13 thousandths. Okay, what would an eighth of a turn be? 7 thousandths, something like that. Okay, 6 thousandths. It'd be close. Okay, we got to round some of these off a little bit. All right, so that's the general idea. We find our thread pitch in threads per inch, and we divide 1 by that number, and that tells us the value of one full turn in thousandths of an inch. Okay. Then we can divide that up by our fractional amounts. Okay. Divide it in half to get 25 thousandths for a half turn's worth. Okay. If we are set here and we need to change by 6 or 7 thousandths, okay, I'm going to move that about an eighth of a turn. All right. And again, I'm going to show you a chart here, you guys. It's got all of this stuff kind of laid out for you, so don't get too excited yet. All right. Now, there are different thread pitches on different manufacturers' dies. Okay, let me show you that lineup again. Okay, here's that series of seating dies again. So we got the newer style RCBS that's got this fatter seat stem. Okay, we've got the Lyman, which has the same style seat stem as the RCBS. Older style RCBS with this skinny stem on it, and a Lee. Yeah, I might as well show you now that I got this out. Remember I said that you got to take the Lee stem all the way out, so you can only see like one thread right there. So that's all we've got to measure the Lee. Okay, so you got to pull it out, but I've already got it measured, and I think that the Lees are all the same. Okay, so back to these. Both the newer RCBS and that Lyman, those are both 20 threads per inch. This older style RCBS with that, okay, much smaller diameter stem on it is 28 threads per inch, and the Lees are 18. So let me show you this summary chart that I said where I've got all of those measurements figured out for you. Okay, here's a summary page, and let me zoom down in here a little closer for you. So just kind of looking across here, okay, we've got our, there we go, we got our Lee, 18 threads per inch, and that means that one full turn, okay, would be 1/18 of an inch. We divide 1 by 18, and we find that that's 0.056 or 56 thousandths. Okay, a half turn would be half of that, right? 28 thousandths. If we turned our seat stem up or down by a quarter of a turn, that's going to change by 14 thousandths. And if we did our measurements and we said, hey, I need 8 more thousandths to get my coal correct, then if I did it by 1/8 of a turn with that Lee stem, I'd be close, right? Okay, and then similarly, you know, I've got a setup here for the older skinny style RCBS that was 28, and I'm going to freeze on this here and give you guys a still frame to look at in case you want to copy it down. And then down at the bottom of this, I've got, you know, a summary of what you do to get the value of one full turn of the stem. Okay, so you just divide 1 by the thread pitch. As an example, we would take that RCBS or Lyman stem, which had a thread pitch of 20, divide 1 by 20 and get 0.050, which is 50 thousandths. Okay, and then from there we can figure out our fractional values like that. Okay, let me throw up a still of this, and you can freeze the video if you want and copy it down. Okay, so now we know that if we measured our cartridge overall length and we determined that we needed to seat the bullet down another 7 or 8 thousandths or so to get it where we wanted. If we're using our Lee die, we could look at our chart and say, hey, 1/8 of a turn is 7 thousandths, so 1/8 of a turn about like that's going to get me close. Okay, instead of just having to guess, all right, instead of doing something like that, okay. So that's the utility of knowing these values, and maybe you only have one die set, and you can just write these numbers down, put them on a sticky note and paste it on your bench someplace. Okay, on the other hand, if you have lots of different manufacturers of dies, now you know how to do it. Okay, you get yourself a thread gauge and a calculator, and you follow the steps here, and you're home free. All right. Okay, there you go, folks. Hope you got something out of that and enjoyed the video. But from the Viejo bench, for now, that's all she wrote.